Okay, so as most of you know, we adopted the Mojaloop's switch to be part of the RNDPS version 2. That was mostly going to cater for the instant retail payments use cases in Rwanda. And it was decided that we would explore the use of the Mojaloop switch. So for the past 1 year, slightly more, we've been doing that. And there has been some customizations that needed to be made in order to meet the local context and some of the business requirements, right? And then this is what we're going to be talking about today. Next slide, please. Or I can use this, I guess. All right, yeah, so this presentation basically is for us to go through some of those customizations and some of the design decision or redesign decisions that were made for us to meet some of the requirements that the national switch of Rwanda needed to have. So first of all, I'll just touch on the objectives that were needed to make the RNDPS version 2 a success. So obviously the operational availability, the transaction speeds, we talked about it yesterday. Most likely James Bush is going to be talking about it in his sessions today or tomorrow, not too sure. So basically what you see there, I'm not going to read them, all of them, but there are some that are very key. Obviously, the switch needed to be interoperable. There are some transaction speeds end-to-end. The mandate of the RNDPS stipulates that no transaction should basically go over, and this is end-to-end, right? From the time the sender sends a transaction to when the receiver, the beneficiary receives the request to credit, if it's a credit transfer, back to the sender, all this within 10 seconds, right? So obviously, be able to accommodate for a number of use cases. So we started with the merchant payments use case, but there's obviously other use cases that are going to be part of the overall switch. Yeah. And then, of course, there are some enablers that we needed to think about in order to make this whole exercise a success. So yesterday you saw some of the work we did around the user interfaces. This is very key to ease the work of the operations teams. We talked about the reconciliation and dispute management, which is something that sometimes gets overlooked when we are deploying payment switches, right? Or you either build something in-house or you purchase, separate systems to do this for you. But from the get-go, this was a hard requirement for our switch, that this gets bundled with the solution that we would be providing. Yeah, and then the rest is, the performance and scalability, obviously, to be able to manage high loads, for a sustained period of time, and then also to be able to scale up and out, right? Up, we can all understand, but out basically is what we touched on, to be able to build things on the peripheries of the core switch, right? To meet certain business requirements that you might have now, or that might come up in the future. And on the panel discussion that we had the other day, I was very particular about that point because of the way the switch was designed. It allows us to actually do this, right? So everything is modularized to the point where, you can build things around and still take advantage of the core functionality of the switch itself. So without further ado, this is basically just to set the context of some of the things that we were asked to do by our switch. And so today we're going to basically talk about, obviously, the switch needed to be deployed, new components needed to be deployed, some changes here and there needed to be done. So that this session today, we're going to tell you about some of the changes we done around the Helm charts to help, which are what is used to help deploy the switch on the Kubernetes clusters. And then this afternoon, we'll also get a chance to tell you a little bit more about the reconciliation and the dispute management modules. So without further ado, I'll ask my team, Max, to join and give you a look around.
Yes, good morning, everyone. My name is Maximilien Bingabo. I'm a software engineer at Wiredin, currently leading the DevOps work on this RNDPS V2 project. So I'm going to go with you how we turn Mojaloop Helm charts into RNDPS V2 Helm charts. So as I mentioned, we worked on different modifications. We added new services. And the next question after adding those services is how do we fit in everything within the deployment processes? That's the first reason why we came up with RNDPS V2 Helm charts. The second reason was security. So as you know, we are deploying on-premise on a private data center. To be specific, on a PCI DSS environment where the access to internet is restricted. So that's why we have to come up with private Docker registry and Helm chart registry as well. And the third reason is to make sure we have a release which is production ready. Yeah, which is production ready. So that's three reasons behind creating Mojaloop Helm charts. And the following slide, I'll be going through with you the modifications and enhancement made to have RNDPS V2 Helm charts. Yeah, the first one was integrating custom services into Helm chart deployment. So we have built a new ISO 2022 connector. We have built simulators that speaks and understand ISO 2022 protocol. We also added a participant portal that will support the back office functionalities. So we had to add them as well on the Helm chart, so everything will be integrated seamlessly. The second slide, I'll be telling you the enhanced security with private Docker images. So we replaced all public Docker IO images with secure alternatives. This shift to a more secure deployment. And also, as I mentioned, in our environment, we don't have access to internet. So we had to use the private Docker registry and the private Helm registry to deploy from there. And also we set access control so that only authorized users can make changes to images and also for images. So the other reason behind is to build a production grade backend Helm charts. The Mojaloop comes with example Mojaloop backend Helm chart, which is actually a good starting point to create POCs and also for testing. But we had to build the production grade backend services. So we added persistent volumes for data retention reliability. We also implemented high availability MySQL and Adobe cluster so that the data is consistent and we improve the performance on the DB operations. We applied MySQL, advanced MySQL configurations and also Kafka configurations on topics. We increased number of partitions to scale or to meet scalability requirement. And also we defined pod affinity rules. Means our cluster consists of different nodes which have different also specifications based on the pod they will be hosting. So when defining a deployment or a pod, we set also pod affinity rules to define where this pod will be sitting. We also implemented advanced DB management and also enhanced scalability. So we introduced MySQL DB cluster, which is a high availability MySQL solution. It provides automatic failover and balancing for database operations. We also introduced MySQL operator for Kubernetes to manage the MySQL instances. So we removed the standalone MySQL that was in the example Mojaloop backend. So we also implemented MySQL read replicas to offload the load on the primary DB so that reading operation won't affect the primary DB. And we also implemented horizontal pod autoscaler. So it means we set threshold for a pod. For example, if a pod utilize more than 50% of the request resources, that means the load is high. So we automatically create a new pods to meet the traffic. We also simulate the deployment. We apply the production configurations. That means the FSP simulators are disabled. It simplifies the deployment, also optimize the resources. So we create only necessary pod and result into a faster deployment. So that means the deployment will be quicker and also development and testing will be faster. We also enhanced monitoring and observability. As you know, Mojaloop original Hamchat provide monitoring tools. It has two stack, EFK for logging and Profana for metrics and dashboards. So what we did, we updated them to the current versions to make them compatible with the current Kubernetes version we're using. We also enhanced the Grafana dashboards. We introduced what we call business dashboards, where the monitoring team can see how many transactions within a certain period, what is the mean transaction time during this period, and also how many lookups made during this period. We introduced this dashboard as well. On logs monitoring, we implemented log parsers to extract meaningful insight from log data. And lastly, we added data backup, automated backup scheduling. Thanks to MySQL operator, we can define a schedule for database backups, be it incremental or full backup to minimize the data loss. We also implemented backup fragmentation policies to make sure we remove unnecessary backups or all the backups, but also making sure the critical or the current backups are still accessible. Yeah, basically that's the modification we did, and we try to make those modifications whenever it's possible on the values of the Helm chart to be able to update from the new releases. Yeah, that's basically our journey from the Mojaloop Helm chart to RNDPS v2 Helm chart. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. So I guess my question is on the design choice around your MySQL InnoDB cluster. Is that geographically distributed? And when you talk about high availability, do you mean you have multiple write nodes, or it's just a singular write node with many replicas that can be promoted to be a writable node?
Yeah, for now we have it in one geographical locations, but the plan is to have also in another geographical location for disaster recovery. But for now, it's for geographical location. Yes, we have multiple instances. We also have a couple of read replicas only.
Thank you. So questions around the, I guess I'll call it the site reliability. I noticed that you have automatic backup facilities in place. Oftentimes that part of it is difficult, but once done, it's good. However, the next piece, which is what happens when I need the backup and I have to roll it back in again. Have you done any kind of restart testing or dry runs for various kinds of failures, from simple failure, I need to restart a server, to I lost power on a rack, to my data center lights are out and I need to restart the whole system?
Yes, we did a couple of restarts of the server, and data were in place as before. But what we'll be trying is to trying to recover data when after an incident, the DB has crashed or the data has been lost. But after the start, the data were in place.
Thanks. I just want to say great job, guys. Well done. It's fantastic to see how you guys have built on the open source platform. And it's very pleasing to me to see that you've picked up all of the extension points that were intentionally designed to allow this customization. I hope you found the process relatively straightforward, and I hope you're having good results. If you do find issues along the way and you think things might be made easier, please give that feedback out to the community or to us at the Mojaloop Foundation, so we can improve things for everybody else in future. But in general, I'm astonished. Well done, guys. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. So you said that your environment is like PCI DSS. So I understand that you'll have to have like quarterly scans running in and all these things happening. Alongside, you said that you have an environment that is highly available, that is being configured. Just wanted to check, like, have you ever done like drills to make sure that one environment is like completely powered off, and then the entire transactions? So like, I just wanted to check, like, have you ever done this testing of recovery time objective, recovery point objective of what is that of your environment, tested it somehow to see if it is like having zero transaction loss?
Yeah, so as Maximilian mentioned, the DR site is currently being brought up. So that means that has not been really properly tested, right? Of course, there have been some simulations here and there, so to make sure that the system is ready for that as we get closer to production deployment. But the actual DR side that will be working alongside the main side, that has not been done yet. But based on the simulations that have been conducted inside the wiring lab and our switch as well. Of course, there are some tweaks here and there, but we're confident that that will happen seamlessly.
Thank you very much. First of all, we have demonstrated that Mojaloop can be extended to improve the value proposition of the inclusive instant payment system. And this is a commendable job. Thank you. The second question I have is, are those extensions open source or some of them we have licensed? Then the second one would be, can you share the listing of the skills required to be acquired so that the community can build the technical capacity required to extend the Mojaloop to meet different requirements in different markets? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much for your question. So when it comes to whether some of the extensions that were made, so obviously some of the extension that were made, I think on the core or near the core, those will most likely be. I mean, it comes to the previous question that was asked to Sam. We're going to work with the team, the Mojaloop team, to see how some of those changes can basically be part of the next releases. When it comes to the peripheral systems that were built around, I'm sure this is a conversation that our switch is going to be having with the Mojaloop Foundation to see how some of those can be also contributed to the rest of the community.
Kindly clarify on the technical competencies. Probably you could share with us a listing of those
technical conflicts.
The skills, basically, what kind of trainings should we recommend to the community? I mean, they are open source, but probably the software engineers, the IT specialists need to build specific capabilities in those areas. And probably that will enable us to prepare our teams if they are going to adopt, for example, Mojaloop and extend it to meet our requirements. Then we can have focused capacity development in those areas. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so I think if I understood correctly, we are talking about some of the technical skills that need to be brought up within your teams before you can consider adopting the Mojaloop. Is that what you're asking? I'm not too sure if I understood your question.
Yeah, that's how I understood it as well.
The question he asked is something similar I want to ask, but before I do that, I would just like to say thanks to you guys for the work you've done so far and the contribution to the overall community. For those of us who are considering adopting Mojaloop, we're really interested in how we can have core teams that can use some of the extensions that you've made already, but then how did you approach building that core technical team that you have, okay, that's developing those different extensions that the community can benefit from? So that overall competence or capacity approach that you use from at our switch, I think that's what he's asking. It's going to be really helpful if you could share some light on that. Thank you.
Yeah, so thank you for clarifying. So I would say, obviously we are happy to share our experience, but I also believe that no size fits all, right? So, and when it comes to, so the one thing I would say first is to really take a very close look at what has been built, right? So the way the Mojaloop switch is built is very futuristic for sure. So there's a lot of, you can tell there's a lot of technical design mindset, futuristic mindset that has been put into place by working with some of the tools, by using some of the tools that are supposed to make our systems performant, scalable, so on and so forth, right? So I think when you are considering to adopt this switch, is to really try to understand the core technologies that have been used to build the switch itself, right? Because from there, once you have that working knowledge, right, of how the switch is built, and since you also know what your local context looks like, then this is where now you start seeing which kind of skills do I need to develop in order to not only be able to deploy the switch as is, but also to take advantage of that knowledge now to build what you need to build to actually make it functional in your own context, right? So, but the starting point, which was also our starting point, was to actually understand, in much detail, right, the technologies used to actually build and deploy the switch itself, right? And then the rest is, based on your local context, right? So for instance, we're talking about the ISO 222 connector that we had to build, but this was because it is the interface that we are currently using with the participants, right, to interface them with the switch, right? Maybe in your countries you might have a different standard in place, right? And in order to bring on board your participants, to bring them on board quickly enough, maybe you want to try and build a different connector around there, right? But I don't know if that answers your question, but this basically would be my advice, and that was how we approached this very challenging but also very rewarding journey.
May I just add one thing before we finish? Just two minutes, sorry. So the Mojaloop Foundation does maintain a list of skills that a typical adopter may need to acquire in order to operate and customize the technology for themselves. There's one of our staff members who I think is in the room, Mr. Tulo. Are you in the room?
I think he's outside at the reception desk.
Okay. But please reach out to any Mojaloop Foundation member of staff. We're the ones with the blue lanyards, and we can get that list to you. There are several models of potential operation here. Some adopters prefer to hire a system integrator, and there are many system integrators in the community, some of which are in the room today. And those system integrators will typically already have staff members with those skills. Wired In is one example, who have a very close partnership with our switch. There's also a hybrid approach where you may have some core staff with appropriate skills belonging to your switch operation yourself. And you may supplement those skills by hiring external contractors from system integrators or other technical consulting organizations. Or the other option is to hire a team yourself. You want to own it and run everything, you can hire your own team. For either the option where you want to build a hybrid scenario or where you want to do things yourself, the Mojaloop Foundation can provide you with a list of the typical skill sets that you would need to hire for. You're welcome.
Thank you so much, James. A round of applause to these folks.